Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Real CFO Project. I'm flying solo again this week. I said between travels and everything, it's been crazy to book guests, get things coordinated. So do these solo episodes just to add additional value on specific subject matters. And today I wanted to talk a lot about urgency. It's come up with me in good and bad ways this week. But let's just start out and say um, urgency isn't necessarily speed. I know some of us are operating from time to time where um, we think we're being urgent, but we're just going. There's no real intention behind it, right? Maybe it's to get a task done, but we're moving so fast with no intention on the steps to get to that end result that we're just blazing through the forest or whatever it might be, trying to get that result. To me, that I used to think that was urgency, but it's really not. That's panic and rushing. Okay, that's kind of chaos. So yeah, the panic, the rushing, the hustle. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're being urgent. You're just kind of panicking and going right. It's so don't conflate the two. So urgency is a very intentional act. It's hustle, right? Um, but with clarity, hustle with clarity and intention. So why does urgency matter? Well, urgency matters for a few reasons, but when you're in business, urgency kind of creates momentum if it's intentionally directed at something. And momentum compounds. Nothing in life really changes until you move. So maybe it's in your life that urgency to, hey, I need to start today getting my health in order. Maybe I need to start today to get my finances in order. Maybe I need to start today to do something better to get my faith restored or back in order as a important piece of my life. So none of that changes unless you have some urgency and you take some actions. What I see most of the time is small businesses that don't have that sense of urgency, they typically die, and they die because they take too long to think. Right? They procrastinate. They don't have a sense of urgency to get things done because there's always something to replace it. So most small businesses, like I said, die because of procrastination, and it's not a lack of opportunity. There's plenty of opportunities there. They just lack the sense of urgency to take advantage of some of those simply because they did not have their house in order. They hadn't taken urgency on all these other matters that led up to that. So they were backstacked. They couldn't take advantage of opportunities. It happens all the time. It's happened to me. Um, and one of the other things that I find with urgency when I say, okay, we need to get here, I'm being very intentional about what we're doing, how we're doing it, and everything, is urgency creates focus, right? When you are moving towards something and you have a well thought out plan and you know the steps to get there, that focus gets dialed in when things matter more to you because you put some thought to it. Uh, it matters now. It's not like, oh, I'll get to it next week. You have an energy, a passion, a drive that um, comes from that momentum, right? That focus is created. So it's very important to one have a sense of urgency. Make sure it is urgency and not chaos and um, panic that you're doing. It's well thought out, and the it ties urgency, the way I look at it, ties back to all areas of life. What we try to talk about, being the CFO of your family, of your faith, your fitness, and your finance. right? It's a huge part of that, and it all requires you to take a sense of urgency and take action, take steps that are well thought out and intentional. Now, along with any thing, there can be a dark side, right? When urgency that is well thought out, intentional, can become kind of a create this whiplash effect and smack you in the ass, so to speak, and work the other way. So um, let's take it for example in business. If we're rushing, right? If we're always rushing, it leads to bad hires, right? We're trying to fill a position. I hired someone I thought I needed for a couple of years prior to when I hired them in January of 2024. And when I hired them, I had these ideas and these thoughts and everything in place. But I interviewed a couple of people. It was very hard to find them. None of them fit. And then I found one that kind of fell in my lap that on paper looked like what I thought we needed. But when I met with them, there were red flags all over the place. But I needed somebody. I wanted that I could make that work, right? So I rushed that decision, and that decision cost me a ton. Not only more, not necessarily financially so much, it damaged the culture in my office. So I had to fix that. But really emotionally and mentally for me, it turned me into a very negative person for a period of time, right? So it can also create burnout. I've been there before. So if you're urgent all the time and always moving, always moving, always moving, even if it is uh, intentional, it's deliberate, it's well thought out, well planned, it can create burnout. It can create you to lose things that are important to you, like your family, right? If you're so urgent, so obsessed with the business and the moving parts and everything that you have to do and go, it can damage that relationship you have with your family, and that's something that as entrepreneurs you have to be wary of. And believe me, I've gone down that road. Your health, right? Business becomes more important than actually hitting the gym or going for that 30-minute, 45-minute walk in the morning. Doing something that makes your body physically and mentally well. It can really impact your clarity. You're not focused. Everything's like right now thing. You can't do that. So be wary of those negative side effects of being urgent. Um, I'll give you an example. I was on it's kind of a two-sided example, right? I had an opportunity 6 months ago. Someone, very successful business owner, reached out to me. And at the time, he didn't know what he needed. And it was a larger organization, not something that necessarily we run into every day and is in our wheelhouse consistently, but it was a service that I could provide. Um, and he was in a position where he's meeting with a trust attorney, different advisors in the room, and he invited me in the room, kind of be that I don't know, devil's advocate, or just listen and hear. Because he had a tax advisor, he had his accountant, all this in that same room, and asked me what we could do to help him and help facilitate it. And I put something together for him. I sent it to him, and he chose to go a different route. And I concurred with him. It was best for him to hire somebody internally. But he went through a lot of processes and hired somebody making multiple six figures as a controller. Guy was a good guy. I thought it was a good fit for him. But this business owner moves so fast that I don't know what happened, but a few weeks ago, they reached out to me and said, "Hey, we don't have our controller anymore. His work ethic just wasn't there." And I'm thinking, okay, maybe it was, but some things can't move as fast as you. But I didn't say that. So he goes, "I wanted to talk to you. I've got this internal person that does my bookkeeping. I've got a company that does kind of a review of that bookkeeping and the accounting, and I'm going to have them start doing the tax return. And I need you to come in and kind of look at the P&Ls and guide us and strategize and stuff like that." Like, okay, I can do that. But I said, first, I need access to the systems that are generating the P&L. So I know the P&Ls are correct and the companies doing them are doing the right thing, because we're not just like, hey, give me this sheet of paper and then we're going to give you tax advice on it, because we don't necessarily know what it is. So I said, why don't we do this? Why don't we? And then he was back and forth and arguing and everything. I said, I need to know the foundation is strong before we can actually do what we say we're going to do. Uh, could I have taken a P&L and L and looked at it and offered advice? Yes, but that's not thorough. That's not the way that we work. So I said, let's do this. Let's go through, give me access to the financials. I'll review them, no cost. We'll have our foundation. We'll go through that step starting the 15th when they deliver the financial statements to you. I'll deliver a report and we'll see how much time it takes, and we'll work out a long-term contract. And he said, okay, great, and hung up and went off to his meetings. I messaged a couple days later because I was traveling the day in between, just to email and confirm what was going to happen. He came back and said, we are not going to waste our time anymore. And I thought, that's the exact reason why you hired a $200,000 CFO, is because you try to move too fast and you don't understand the moving parts. Now, I could have moved faster. I could have said, yes, here's a $3,000 retainer. We'll work through that and then we'll build out as we come. You give us what you think we need, and then after we get the signed contract, we'll tell you what we need beyond just the basics. So anyway, two-edged sword. He was moving way too fast. That's why he's in the predicament he's in. He switched tax preparers, tax accountants, probably 3 or 4 times in the last 5 years. He hired somebody that was very knowledgeable, very good, probably worked him, was moving too fast for him. So he opted out. And then me on that side, I could have taken that opportunity to drive revenue, a short-term um, engagement, just to see how it would work with us, right? If I had the mentality at that time to do that. But anyway, that's an example of how it can be a detriment on both sides, both on the business owner side, moving too fast, and then on the service provider side is not being able to act to take advantage of an opportunity to do some work and see where it grows from there. So that's kind of a story. So here's kind of a framework that I try to abide by. I'm not great at it because this whole urgency thing and intentional uh, um, urgency with clarity hasn't always been something I've followed. But you have to run with urgency when there's an opportunity with a time window. This example I just gave, there was a time window. I should have been able to say, hey, I know this guy's MO, I know his mentality. Here's the proposal, sign it. We'll do it month to month for 3 months, see how it works. Okay. If in your mind, in your heart, you already know the next right step, you move. You don't overthink, don't overanalyze, you move. Uh, if for some reason you have cash flow issues and that needs to be addressed, you can't wait till next week, next month for that. That's a sense of urgency. You have to do something now, so you have to move with that urgency. And then when you're uh, find yourself just over analyzing things, uh, delaying decisions out of fear, the anxiety it creates, and not logic. You need to move fast. Make a decision, move. Make a decision, move. I think Jeff Bezos said is uh, there's a one way and a two-way decision or something, but it was a one-way door or two-way door. And one-way, two-way door decisions make it quick, right? Because those decisions might cost you a little time, money, and everything, but you can come back through the door, right? Create, you know, adjust, pivot, those sorts of things, and go back through the door and release or move on. One way door decisions are those that take time, deliberation, consideration of multiple obstacles, things of that nature, pros, cons, before you make that decision. Because once you go through that door, that decision could jeopardize the entire business, right? Because you can't come back. It's too big, too enormous. Maybe it costs too much capital to come back from. So those are um, times to use it. So now it's very important that you understand when it's best used and when you need to kind of walk instead of run or sprint. Um, when you're making those one way door decisions, right? When you're making long term strategic decisions, you need to walk, right? With a sense of urgency, right? I think Ed Milet called it I forget what, patiently urgent or something like that. But you know what I mean? You're walking, you slow down, but you're being very intentional, but you're moving. You're being intentional, you're moving to take steps forward, but you're not making a quick decision. So you can still be urgent while you're walking if it's very intentional. And that's something you should do on when it's a long-term strategic decision. Also, when it affects your family or core values, you need to slow down and walk through that and consider the long-term effects and everything, because that's something that's more of a one-way door decisions. Um, you walk when you need data, right? So many times, small business owners, we always say, "Hey, it's 5 grand. We can throw it at it. If it doesn't work, no big deal." Yes, that's true. We have to try things. We have to lose on ideas. We have to invest where others might not be comfortable. But there should be data behind every decision that you make. And if simple data can't be provided by whether it's vendors, a marketing agency, your CPA, your tax preparer, your tax strategist, anybody, um, if there's no data there, you don't have to make that decision right there. And I think a lot of times people do that, especially when it comes to their finances. Hey, I know a guy that knows a guy that knows a guy. Well, most of the folks that got into the securities industry and the investment advisory industry and everything, they came from various backgrounds. They may not have a degree or whatever. It doesn't. Some are great, but some just get in to be salespeople and they sell you something that is good, thought to be good, IUL, stuff like that. Uh, when it's not in your best interest. So you have to be careful when making those decisions. Be urgent, be thorough, have intention, but don't just hire the next CPA because he sounds good. Don't just hire the next financial advisor because your guy that drives a financed Lamborghini uses it, but has no money in the bank, right? So that's all I'm saying there. Um, and then when you're building systems, whether it be in your life, your business, you have to move urgently but walk. Make sure those systems and processes are built out fine. So now urgency, here's how we'll hit it and kind of wrap this thing up is urgency through the 4 pillars of faith, family, fitness, finance. Remember the Real CFO Project is the chief family, faith, fitness, and finance officer of your life. Faith, urgency to stay grounded, slow enough to listen. Family, urgency to show up, slow enough to be present. Fitness, prioritizing health, slow enough to train sustainably. Financially, urgency to fix cash flow, slow enough to build systems to generate wealth, which is a huge, huge deal. So if you struggle with urgency versus chaos, and you're confused with the two, take some time to think about it, right? Urgency is intentionally moving forward with data, maybe some emotion, but eliminating most of it when making key decisions, but it's very intentional. Uh, Here's a couple ways to do it. Identify one action that you've been avoiding. Maybe it's going to the gym. Maybe it's reading that book. Maybe it's going on that walk with your wife. Maybe it's date night. Maybe it's taking your son, to a ball game. Whatever it is, take one action, move forward with it. Do something right now with a sense of urgency. Put it on the calendar. It doesn't have to be a today thing, but today you can put it on the calendar and tell that other person in 10 days we're doing this, right? Um, Identify one area where you think you might be moving too fast. Maybe it's, hey, when you get home from work, you're still moving, you're still on your phone. Maybe it's setting that phone down for a couple hours before the kids go to bed, or you can spend time with that family before you kind of jump back on and check emails, or do what you got to do. But find something to that you move too fast and that you would like to slow down, and start implementing some things to rectify that. Maybe it's 20 minutes, maybe it's 30 minutes for putting the phone in the drawer, maybe it's an hour. Build up. I would suggest blocking 20 minutes each morning for your time. Call it CFO time. That's where I focus on my faith. I read scripture. My family, I think about how I can be a better husband, better father. Fitness, I generally do my morning routine. And I think all three of those kind of add together and impact my finance. So take 20 minutes each morning to reflect on those things, and ask, is this, am I being urgent, right? Am I being urgent, or am I just kind of being chaotic, moving too fast just for the sake of moving too fast? So remember this: urgency without wisdom and intention is noise. Wisdom without urgency is wasted. The key word: wisdom, intention, knowledge, data. To end the call, I appreciate you guys listening. If you know somebody that would like the content, share the show with them. That's how we grow. We really want to pour back into the community, give knowledge to entrepreneurs, maybe help them avoid some of the things and mistakes that we did. So remember this as you leave the call today. Appreciate you listening, but urgency without wisdom is noise. Wisdom without urgency is wasted. Remember that. Apply something today. Make your life better intentionally with urgency. Talk to you next time.